a little different, okay? Why? Because this year, I really don't think I want to talk about the most disappointing games. I don't think I want to talk about the best games. I want to talk about playthroughs. Because when you look at the stuff that went really well or not well for me this year in gaming, a lot of it had to do not with the games themselves, but the playthroughs in general. What playthroughs crushed it and were fun and lasted a long time and everyone enjoyed and we had engagement and support and everyone just in their heads are going to remember those playthroughs for a long time. Compare that to the playthroughs that were the most disappointing. Now, I want you to understand something. We're about to do the top 20 most disappointing gaming playthroughs of 2024. That doesn't mean these games are bad. It could, but it doesn't necessarily mean that the game is bad. And I will try to explain in each situation, okay, what I actually mean by that. So if I say, oh, this game is one of the most disappointing playthroughs, I'll tell you if the game is good, but why the playthrough was disappointing. You see? The number 20 most disappointing playthrough of the year for me was Path of Exile 2. And of course, you're going to see me in stereo in some of these cases, but just listen to my voice synced with me here in the bottom right corner and you'll know which is the real Phil. So, Path of Exile 2. You might say, Phil, I don't get it. Why would this be one of the most disappointing playthroughs of the year for you? Okay. Well, there's two major reasons why. All right. Reason number one, I like Diablo-esque games. I like games where you do this top-down perspective. You're doing all kinds of RPG elements, combat, skill trees, exploration, and the loot. The loot is so addicting in games like this. You know, you just want to keep playing and killing the monsters or enemies so that you can get more cool loot. And that's part of the gameplay loop that hooks you, right? Back in the day, I played Diablo 1 and 2 on PC. That's right. In the 90s, I actually was a PC gamer. And I loved Diablo 1 and 2. I thought that they were addictive, fun, really great gameplay experiences. But these games have never really translated well ever since I've been a YouTuber. I tried it with Diablo 3. I tried it last year with Diablo 4. And essentially, you know, when this game was coming out at the end of 2024, I was going to skip it. I had absolutely no intentions whatsoever to play this game. Okay? You guys convinced me to. People were like, no, if you miss out on Path of Exile 2, you're going to be missing out on one of the best games of the year. It's one of the most anticipated PC games in many, many years. You absolutely must play it. So I listened to your feedback, and I said, all right, I'm going to bite the bullet. Let's get it. And I bought it. It's early access, by the way, although the game apparently is pretty much done. People are saying you could play it through and actually enjoy the entirety of the game. I made this lightning monk style class, as you can see here, and I was really enjoying the graphics. The game performed very well on my PC. The gameplay elements were getting more interesting the further in that I got. You know, at first it was just kind of basic punch and then charge up some abilities and use them. But then, as you can see, I started using chain lightning and I started using this ice ability that would slow down enemies. And it was actually getting better and better and better. But the problem with these games, which I believe they're called AARPGs, something like that. The problem with these RPGs is as follows. Fun to play, addictive to play, not necessarily fun to watch. And I think that's exactly what happened here. Even though I had warned all of you and I said, you know, I don't think this is going to work for a playthrough. Diablo 3 and 4 didn't work. So I don't think this is going to work. But people were like, no, Phil, you should try it anyway. We want to see you play it. So I bought it. I played it for one stinking stream. Guess what happened during the stream? Attendance dipped. People got disengaged. The support was bad. And Marvel Rivals. Now you might say, wait, what? Marvel Rivals? Marvel Rivals is like the hottest game right now. Marvel Rivals has record numbers of players on Steam. People are playing the heck out of it, really loving it. And honestly, it's a pretty good game. It's basically classic Overwatch-style gameplay. The only difference being, as you can see, it's third person rather than first person, and it stars Marvel characters and properties. So why would Marvel Rivals stack up to be one of my most disappointing playthroughs of the year? Well, first off, I played it twice. I first played this game during the summertime when it had an open beta, and I actually liked it during the open beta. Then I came back to it later in the year when it had a full release in December, and I was having a good time with it. I liked playing all the different characters. I liked messing around with the different mechanics. I thought that the different Marvel aspects of it were actually quite neat. And although, I'll be honest, in some cases, I feel certain characters weren't really representative of what they are in the Marvel Universe, i.e. like Magneto, who in this game is very different. I feel certain characters weren't really representative of what they are in the Marvel Universe, i.e. like Magneto, who in this game is very different from how he would, used in a comic book. But basically, I really enjoyed it. And so, why is it disappointing? Because both times I played it, both in the summer and at the end of the year, I basically got initial interest where people were showing up and liking it and engaging with it and supporting it for a couple streams, maybe like 2 to 3 streams each. And then when I got to about the 10-hour gameplay mark, I noticed a distinct, not necessarily boredom, but stagnation. People got to a point where they were like, we've seen enough. Every time you play, even though you're using different characters, it's not really that different. It's just Overwatch. Now, listen, I'll admit it has an incredible amount of similarities to Overwatch, okay? But it's good still. Like, that doesn't mean that it's bad. I mean, Overwatch, when it was at its prime in 2016, 2017, was one of the biggest games on the planet. It won Game of the Year at the Game of the Year Awards. People were having merchandise in the mainstream. I mean, hell, I'm not even kidding you. I had a car sunshade that said Overwatch. It was so popular, you could just buy it at a normal store. It was on the level of games like Minecraft and stuff like that. Or I guess you would say, or Fortnite today. So then why does no one talk about Fortnite anymore? Excuse me. Why does no one talk about Overwatch anymore? Well, because Activision Blizzard ran it into the ground and ruined it. And now very few people talk about it or play it compared to what was like, 7, 8 years ago. So in the case of this, Marvel Rivals, this is a game that takes those great things from Overwatch and then on top of that applies flashy graphics and a really good Marvel, IP and combines it into a winning formula. So then why on earth won't people watch me play it? Why do people complain that it's boring, repetitive, and why do people not support? Don't really know, except people just say it's too much like Overwatch. So maybe in this case, it just really is a little bit too much. At the same time, when I look at this, I'm like, I feel like the game would have been better in first person, just being honest. Like, I think the third person aspect was their excuse to say they didn't blatantly copy Overwatch, even though it's apparent they actually did. But basically, I think the game is fun, and I'm disappointed because I actually was having fun picking new characters. As you can see, I was picking characters like Iron Fist or Venom versus. Okay? So, for the record, MultiVersus is a game that actually was out years ago in early access / beta, right? When the game finally had a full release this year, a lot of people were questioning whether it was going to be well received and was it going to be a good game or not. I was one of them. I liked MultiVersus many years ago. What was it, like 2.5 years ago when it was in that open state? I actually liked the variety of characters that were in it, their different play styles. I just found it very enjoyable. So what happened with MultiVersus when it came out was that you had 2 distinct groups of people. Some people were curious to see this is going to be a full release game that was going to be worth playing. And others just immediately said, well, we already saw this 2 years ago. We know exactly what the game is. And they feel like it's just a kind of a knockoff of Smash Brothers that will never live up to the level of competitive gameplay or hype of Smash Brothers. And therefore, they just immediately wrote it off and said, it sucks. So for me, I landed somewhere in the middle because I was definitely curious with the final release and these new characters, such as you can see the Banana Guard and Jason Voorhees. Were they going to be good? Were they going to significantly change the way the game was played? It was going to be pretty exciting to play it. There's a lot of character selection. This is sounding familiar, kind of like Marvel Rivals, where you got to play different characters, learn, take time to learn and get good and stuff like that. And guess what happened? I basically played it twice. And by the time that I wanted to play it a third time, everyone said, stop playing this game. It's just a Smash Brothers knockoff. It's just another game that plays similarly to another game. It's not very good. Drop it. And you know what? I'll be honest. I wish that people had been more open-minded because I think I would have liked it if I had tried more characters and played it longer. It just seems like with my audience, either a game immediately resonates and is a hit, or people just don't like it at all. And sadly, that's what happened with this game, just like Marvel Rivals, where I was enjoying it. I wanted to try new characters. I was having a good time. But after a couple of streams, everyone got bored with it, okay? So what's funny about it, though, is that apparently the game did not do well. Someone even just said they just checked right now. Only 700 people are playing this game on Steam. It has completely and utterly failed. This is very similar to the original Dragon Ball Budokai experience. Well, if anything, can we just agree on something then? Maybe Dragon Ball Budokai was made in the past for a reason. It's outdated. It's not a formula that really works in 2024 when people are looking for a game that's going to have bang for your buck value, competitive edge in nature. It just doesn't have any of those things. So because of that, 90% of the people are going to play it once or twice and quit it out. I mean, I think that's a bigger player fall off than Mortal Kombat 1 had, quite frankly. So, yeah, sorry to say, a game that I had high expectations for. You guys hyped me up for it, and it really let me down. I honestly wish that the game had been a lot better than it was, and that I would have played it more than I had. I only played through the campaign once and online once or twice, and I was done with it, and no one seemed to care. That's the other funny part, too. It's like, oh, maybe Phil, like, prematurely quit the game, but in this case, only maybe one or two people ever mentioned it ever again. So pretty disappointing. I think now you're definitely starting to see the pattern here. Either it's games that I really liked, but somehow didn't resonate with the audience, or games that the audience thought was going to be great, but then when I actually bought them and played them, they ended up not being very good at all, right? So pretty big disappointments. Interesting improvements added to the game. Why are they acting like this game came out a year after the first Dragon's Dogma? The fact that they charge full price for it also is just disappointing. If they had sold it as like a $30, $40 game, maybe I would have forgiven some of its shortcomings, but they're selling it as if it's a full-fledged sequel. It's not. And the funny part about it is the game came out, people talked about it for about a week, and then it's like it never existed. Like, I don't remember, no one talked about it again. Everyone just kind of gave up on it. So, yeah, pretty disappointing, quite frankly. It was a game that I was very much looking forward to because I really liked the first one, but I'm sorry, if you're not going to make any gameplay improvements and even graphical improvements in a decade, your game's just inferior. No one's going to want to play it. And, this was a case where people got bored of the playthrough, but I was bored long before. I was willing to try to tough it out if people liked it, but everyone was bored with it, including me, and that's why we dropped it. If I'm going to continue to play a game and invest a bunch of time in it, it has to be a game that on both sides we're both enjoying, and this was sadly just one that neither side was enjoying. Dragon's Dogma 2 was a humongous and utter disappointment, I feel, to the RPG community because, again, the first one innovated, and this one just did more of the same of the first. So, there you have it. And so, we are nearing the end of our first 10 most disappointing playthroughs. Hades 1, I didn't break any view records, okay? To be honest, it wasn't a game that brought butts to seats, but there was a core audience that enjoyed coming by and watching me play Hades 1. And they supported it, and it ended up being a very fun playthrough that went for a long time. With Hades 2, after having played it about twice, I noticed a distinct drop-off in viewership. I noticed a distinct disconnect in the chat where people were basically not paying attention to the game, and I noticed a distinct drop-off in support as well. So those are the three factors that I need to have good. I need to have a game that people are going to watch and engage with and support, and it wasn't happening. So when I asked my audience, why? If the first game worked so well and everyone enjoyed it, why on earth this game, why is it not working, right? And the answer that I received baffled me, okay? The answer that I received was thus. The game is good, but it's early access, right? So that means that essentially you can't really finish the game at this point. You're going to come to a point where you can't progress any further. Now, it's pretty far into the game, but it's not done yet. A lot of people don't want to spoil themselves on a game like this until it's fully able to be purchased and played. And therefore, people who were like hardcore fans of this game didn't want to watch me play it. They actually wanted to skip it so they weren't spoiled because they felt like it was too early to be playing or getting information about the game. So in this case, me paying money to play early bit me in the foot. Like, yeah, people were like, oh, I'll come back. If you play the real game when it comes out, whatever that may be, we'll come and watch you play it. But we wanted to see you play the real game. What you're playing essentially is an early build. Things might change in the final game. The plot might change. You can't even finish it now. So we don't want to watch you play it. And I was like, wow, well, that's disappointing. Hence why it's the number 7 most disappointing playthrough. It's unfinished. I had to put it on pause. I don't even know if when I play this again, if I'll continue from where I left off or if I'm going to have to start over entirely because the game might be so different. And a lot of people were saying that once they get to a certain point where they change the build of the game so far that basically you can't even resume your game. You have to start over entirely. Okay. So honestly, pretty disappointing. I was enjoying the game. I wish I could have kept playing it. But again, I'm not just playing games for me. It's games for an audience. I need to be doing stuff you guys want. And people told me to stop playing, so I did. Performed pretty well. I mean, maybe it could have been better if the Pro was out, but it still performed pretty darn well when it came to the graphical department, okay? Some people complained and said, we didn't like that in combat. There's pixelization and resolution changes. Personally, it didn't bother me. I thought that the combat was fine. The story. Well, the story is the story of Final Fantasy VII with some additional things added in, so I like that. The game now had big open world segments, something that was not present in Final Fantasy VII Remake. And these open world segments had side content and enemy hunting and grinding, but also mini games and side stories and fun things in them. Chocobo traversal, riding a chocobo up walls and through certain areas. It was pretty neat, actually. All right. So, personally, I really enjoyed Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. So, what happened? I'll tell you what happened. I played it for about 20 hours. And then a certain stream happened where I was streaming the game. And I went over and I'm curious. The chat seems really dead today, and I don't know what's going on. So I looked at the stream attendance. We were under 200 viewers. That is actually one of the worst attendances I've ever received in any video game. Like, make no exaggeration about it. Yeah, I usually would get around 200 viewers, if not more, no matter what game that I'm playing. But sadly, this game was not performing well. Engagement. So I go to the chat and I start talking with people. The entire chat starts talking to me about sports. During Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, people are talking about March Madness basketball. What is going on? Could you be any more disconnected from what the game is about? Could you be any more not paying attention? Why are we talking about March Madness? I don't even like basketball. So why would that be a discussion in my chat? And then, of course, yes, the trifecta that goes with that, the support was abysmal. We didn't even get like $30 that day, okay? So, low attendance, low engagement, low support. And when I asked my audience what happened, essentially the story I got was thus. RPG overload. You've played too many RPGs. You played Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth. You played Baldur's Gate 3. Now you're playing this. You said you're going to play Dragon's Dogma 2. You said you're going to play this other RPG. You skipped Persona 3, Reboot, Reload, whatever the hell it is. There's more RPGs coming out. RPGs, too many. So to be honest, I don't think it was the game that killed the playthrough. I think it was the timing. I feel like if I hadn't already been playing several other RPGs during the same time frame, people actually would have engaged and showed up and supported this playthrough. But the problem is, sadly, there were too many of the same style of game released within a very short window of time at the beginning of 2024. And what happened was all of these games cannibalized each other in views, in attention, even in sales. If you're not aware, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth underperformed for Square Enix, and they were shocked. They thought this game was going to blow sales numbers up. It was going to be the most purchased Final Fantasy game. They were looking to recover because Final Fantasy 16 the year before had also been a sales flop, and they were hoping this would make up for it. And literally, it fell on its face. It didn't sell well compared to what they were expecting. And so, to them, they were wondering what was going to happen with the series. Now, from what I'm going to understand, eventually it did sell more, and the PC port of this game is coming out soon. I think it's either this month or next month. So there may get more of an audience and more traction once it's not just exclusively on the PlayStation 5 console. But it stands to reason. The game, sadly, was a disappointment, but I don't know why. I mean, take a look. I'm having fun playing it here. Look, we're switching to Barrett now. We're going to run around this cave. We're going to use the gun. The graphics are great. Like, I'm really enjoying myself in this video. Sadly, the audience isn't. I don't know why, but that's just a reality, you know? So a lot of people during the year asked me if I would go back. I said, why would I go back when I was actually playing the game? You weren't there. You didn't engage. You didn't support. And people were begging me on that stream to turn off the game and do anything else. Literally, people were like, Phil, can you turn off Final Fantasy VII Rebirth and do a Q&A instead? We'd rather have that. And I was like, seriously? Like, that blows me away. I grew up with RPGs. RPGs are near and dear to my heart. Anyway, so in regards to Baldur's Gate 3, excuse me. I'm sorry, I'm a little distracted. In regards to Baldur's Gate 3, okay? Basically, I really like the game, but it actually almost killed my channel. I want you to understand. I played it for so long that it was in my actual rotation of games for so long that people who didn't like it said, well, I'm just not going to watch Phil's content for a while until he's done with this dang game because I don't want to see him play Baldur's Gate 3. I'm not interested in it. So I had people, I'm not even kidding, hundreds of people who were regulars who didn't tune into my content for months. The only reason that things worked out is because there was a small handful of people who really liked Baldur's Gate 3 who kept coming by and actually supporting Baldur's Gate 3. If it weren't for those handful of people, I mean, there was one person who, no lie, was giving hundreds and hundreds of dollars. Oh my God. They were giving hundreds of dollars a stream to support it. If that didn't happen, this playthrough would have completely screwed up the channel and my business. I'm not kidding. And after this playthrough ended, I said, listen, I loved the game. I did. I really like Baldur's Gate 3. I thought it was a great game. But I told everyone, I can't commit to playing games like this anymore. Like, it was just too lengthy. I can't play for 4 months to beat a game. So that's my problem is everyone likes it. 10 people support it. But then my channel dies. My views went down. My engagement went down. It took, I think it was April or May when finally I started playing variety games again. And then all of a sudden, everything went back up. But it took a tremendous amount of time to get there, okay? So sadly, I just simply cannot commit to playing long games like this ever again. Sorry, when Metaphor came out, I played through the demo. I played a whopping 12 hours of the demo. Because the demo was that long. The demo's around 13, 14 hours long, to be clear. It's the entire first segment of the game, like the whole first act, okay? So I actually played it and really liked it. As you can see, look at this gameplay. It's like I said, it's like Persona, but with a twist, and it's really well executed, and the graphics are great. Like, I was having an absolute great time with this game, all right? But sadly, multiple times that I gave this game a chance, I think I did 4 streams of it, okay? Every single time I played it, low attendance, low engagement, support, and people asking me to stop playing it and play other games. All right? I tried hard. I played 3 hours and then 6 hours and then 9 hours and then 12 hours. I kept playing it. Even though people were telling me not to, I kept playing it, trying to give it a chance. But at some point, you got to throw your hands up in the air and be like, listen, I gave it the good old college try, but it's just not working. And that's exactly what happened with Metaphor. Now, the funny part about it was when I announced to everyone, well, guys, I guess we're not playing Metaphor, people got on my case and they're like, Phil, why aren't you playing Metaphor? Why? I did. Here's the question about these people who say this stuff. You're mad I'm not playing a game, but where were you when I was playing it? If I had gotten attention and engagement and support when I played it for 12 hours, then I would have bought the game and played it. But the people who wanted to see me play it didn't show up for the streams. So what do you want me to do? Listen, this is both a business and a hobby. I'm a lifelong gamer. I love video games. It's my passion. It's what I love to make content about, okay? I love games like this. I would have loved to do a full playthrough for all of you. I'm sad that I didn't. But this is my business and my job as well as my hobby. I can't just sit here and play whatever I want, because if I did, in this case, I would have went out of business in 2024. I would have been playing all these RPGs and no one would have shown up. I can't make people engage and like content. All I can do is showcase said content in an entertaining and fun way and hope that it works for you too. This game resonates with me, but it doesn't resonate with the mainstream chunk of my audience. So because of that, sadly, I just don't have the ability to play what I want. I want to play this. I still want to play this. To this day, I want to play Metaphor, but I can't. I have to play what I have time for on streams. I don't have time to play a 100-hour RPG off streams. I purposefully disconnect myself from gaming when I'm off stream so that I don't have overload. Can you imagine if I streamed all day games, then I went offline and I played more games? I'd be burnt out. I'd be so upset that my entire life is just inundated with video games that I probably wouldn't even enjoy them anymore, right? So